Steve Broad. I'm the president of the Western Lake Erie chapter, and Brian Butler's here also. From the Northeast Michigan chapter, there he is. And first thing I'd like to do is thank Werner for his hospitality.
Yeah.
You know, Werner invited us.
Yeah, make sure don't forget about dessert here. I don't want to have to eat all that.
Actually whiskey. No. But basically the agenda that Brian and I put together today, to welcome you guys, and then we'll have some board member introductions. We have a event for 2015. I'd like to give you an update about that. And then we're going to talk about the Eyes on Design show. And Werner has asked me to help pull some Studebakers together for that show. And he's going to talk about that. He's been involved with that for.
I'll do the membership first. Out of the 62 members for the WLEC chapter, we have all but 9 have paid their dues for 2015.
Tom gave me an envelope this morning with $375 worth of dues payments. So with that included, we have about,
Both clubs are doing well, and later on when we get into some of our new business stuff.
These are the events that we've been planning in the Western Lake Erie chapter, and you know, you guys, as you know, are invited to anything that we do in general. Well, March 21st, here we are, Masterworks. Joe Pappy has put together a trip, a visit to the Maritime Museum near Toledo. He has sent in a deposit, and you're here to tell you more about it, but that's a real interesting museum. If you look online, you'll see it. The Eyes on Design show, Werner's going to talk about in a few minutes. And then we've got the Zone Meet, the 26th and 27th in Chillicothe, Ohio.
South of Columbus.
On July 10th, we have the Rolling Sculpture Show in Ann Arbor, and some of us have gone to that, and it's really a nice show. We got the Woodward Dream Cruise on August 15th, and Joe Pappy is again spearheading that, and we have a really good spot in Birmingham. September 20th, we've got the Orphan Car Show in Ipsy.
We do, of course, try to coordinate between the two chapters to see, like today, what kind of events that we can attend together.
Just a couple of slides. This is the Northeast Michigan chapter.
Bill Manshu's house.
Bill's house.
It looks like you guys have a lot of fun. Food first, Studebaker second. I guess we're doing a little bit of that today. And this is our chapter. This picture was taken several years ago in Canton, I believe, at a retirement community. And it's really cool. Now I'm going to turn the program over to Werner to talk about the Eyes on Design. And do you want to start with this? Listen to Werner.
Sure. Let me tell you a little bit about the Eyes on Design show. The Eyes on Design show is a show that was originally initiated to raise money for the Detroit Institute of Ophthalmology.
That's where our car was taking pictures.
And that was an institute that was founded by Dr. Phil Hesberg to assist people with visual impairments, and particularly stuff like macular degeneration. The Detroit Institute of Ophthalmology serves as the organization that is championing this effort to develop neuroocular implants. You've probably all heard of the cochlear implants for your ears. Well, there's about 1,000 times more receptors in your eye than there are in your ear. So there's 3 orders of complexity, greater, more difficulty. But they have succeeded now in providing implants for people that are totally blind that don't restore vision. They give you a very crude level of vision. Like you can tell day from night. You can tell if there's a body standing in a doorway and it's lit up, or you can pick up a dark coffee cup on a white tablecloth. But this is just the first steps. So they're doing wonderful things, and they host a symposium, which is of people from around the world. They come here to Detroit. The Detroit Institute of Ophthalmology is probably better known overseas than it is here because of the work they're doing on these these implants for your eyes. So anyway, I feel really privileged to be able to work on this effort here. They have a show every year it's on Father's Day every year, that's held at the Edsel and Eleanor Ford House in Grosse Pointe. A wonderful venue. And this was always my gift to my dad. You know, come to the show with me on Father's Day. The focus of the show is a little different than most car shows you go to. It's all judged by car designers. So hence the name Eyes on Design. It's a focus entirely on design, not so much on the accuracy of restoration or the white glove treatment. We're trying to show interesting shapes. As a matter of fact, there's a group of visually impaired people, we call them the visionaries, and they actually judge with white gloves. They're totally blind people that come out there and judge a class and award a trophy based on what they feel with their hands. An interesting show this year. Our theme is house design. So we're trying, instead of separating the group usually by muscle cars and by classics and by, you know, post-war sports or whatever, this year we're grouping it all by design. So you'll have the cars of Virgil Exner and the cars of Raymond Loewy and the cars of Farley Earl separated out on the field. And I've lassoed the services of Steve here, who's putting together a group of cars for a display here, and we certainly, you know, if anybody else has got any good ideas, we're all ears. You got cars that you think should be added to this list? We'd love to have the cars there, and we'd love to have you there. It's a great way to spend a Sunday. The grounds are incredible, and like my wife said, you know, the mansion is incredible. I mean, you really should go and take the tour while you're there if you got the time. Go and take a tour through the Ford House. It'll really give you an appreciation of what this family gave to our community. And now for my commercial here. This is kind of the outgrowth of my hobby, what we're here. I retired from GM about 13 years ago and decided to play cars. And so we bought this facility here, and we've been tinkering, and my son runs this place for me now. What I want to talk to you about today was a little bit about maintenance, and something we don't think a whole lot about, but I put together this program. I got invited to take a free ride to Panama once if I put on some presentations. So I put this together, and I hope I don't make you too sick of looking at Corvette pictures, because that's what it's all about. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the ownership experience. I want to talk about insuring your car, the value of appraisals, fluid system maintenance on your car, and storage. So, collector car insurance. You know, this is something that I've really gotten aware of since I've been in business. Because, you know, before I, just like everybody else, I just paid my insurance where I get it cheapest and I was happiest. And I would try to always, you know, I for years underinsured my cars because it was cheaper and I couldn't afford to fully insure them. So anyway, what should you look for? I mean, you really want to deal with an insurance company that understands what they're insuring. You go in there and tell them you got a 1968 Chevy. It happens to be a Corvette. They insure the 68 Chevy. You get a good rate, but when it comes time that there's a claim against it, all of a sudden they want to fix it as the $4,000 car that you've been insuring, not the $40,000 car that it is. It's like, right, we've had customers that have had to come in here, they say, I'm insured, I should be covered. Yes, you are, but they want me to do it with what they call LKQ parts, like in kind and quality. You know, inferior aftermarket junk that you don't want on your car. And so it's really good that you have an insurance company that understands what they're insuring, knows what they're insuring, and you have a good understanding of this is a car that's worth a lot of money, and it has to be, and if something happens, you want to be made whole on this deal. I always recommend we get collector car insurance. It's a really good deal because they know you're not driving them in commerce every day, so it minimizes their exposure, so you get a good deal on that. Secondly, here in the state of Michigan, you get an 80% reduction on your uninsured motorist fee. And the other thing is, most all of them, if you've got multiple cars, and I'm sure most of us here have more than one collector car, they only charge you liability once because they know you're driving but one car at a time. And so they look at insuring multiple cars, it's the same amount of money that's strictly based on the value. So if you have a $100,000 car that you want to insure, and I have two $50,000 cars to insure, it's the same amount of money, strictly on the basis of the agreed value that we've come up Okay, like on most of our policies for our daily business, actual cash value, there's all kinds of databases. They know what these cars are worth, what they're going on the auction, and if there's a total loss, theft, claim, fire, they know how much to pay you. Then there's two terms that are used interchangeably, but they're totally different. And with a stated value policy, they pay the lesser of the current value or the stated value. They pay the lesser of the two. It's not an agreed value, which is what you really thought you had. And so, make sure that when you're insuring your car, you have an agreed value policy. So you go in there and say, I think my car's worth this much money, and they say, we need pictures or an appraisal, and they'll agree that it's worth that much. So in the event of a total loss, they will pay you that much money. Maintain confidence. Another thing, people say, I don't drive this car very much, I'll put lower liability limits on it. There's no sense spending a big premium. Wrong-o. If anything, these cars, we don't drive them very often, but they're probably less reliable than our daily driver. And you go out there and have a problem. If you've got collector cars that are worth money, people know that. You are collectible. And they won't sue you less because you're driving an old car and they think you're poor. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about oil. And this is something that's come into, for years, we're all old enough to remember, we used to have straight weight oils, and then we went to multi-viscosities and detergent oils, and you could always take whatever oil was being marketed as the good stuff and put it in your old car, and everything was wonderful. Well, recently things have changed. The federal government, in their infinite wisdom, has told the auto manufacturers they want to continue to extend the emissions warranty. And in order to make sure that our catalytic converters live long and healthy lives, the auto industry said, we really can't tolerate oil with sulfur in it getting in and contaminating the catalyst. It reduces the life. And so there was an additive that was used in our oils for many years called zinc dialkyl dithiosphosphate, or ZDDP as we call it. A lot of people just call it the zinc. But anyway, the dithiosphosphate is sulfur, and it's bad for catalytic converters. And they decided that they would limit the use of this to like 600 parts per million. The SAE said we should have about 1,400 parts per million. Well, the oil company said, well, if it's not good, let's just get it out, take it out of our oil. And so the loss of this anti-wear additive is of no consequence to our new cars because they all have the benefit of roller camshafts and they've got, direct ignition systems. But on our old cars where we've got flat tappet cams, especially high performance ones, we got heavy springs on there with the camshaft, the lobes grinding by those flat lifters. We'll tear up go through the case hardening and waste the camshaft. Likewise, you got a high volume, high pressure oil pump. It's driven by the distributor gear. A lot of contact stress on those teeth. You take the gears out of there. So, we've been blessed with some additional work here at our shop because people are using modern oils and they thought they'd buy a nice expensive synthetic oil, put it in their car, and we've had cams come in here with no good lobes on them. And for years, I never saw a cam with more than 1 or 2 bad lobes on it. We had one in here with 16 bad lobes because of this oil. So, what do we do about this today? For years I was telling people to put Shell Rotella diesel oil in, but what do we do today? And so there's a couple of options that we have for our old cars. There are a couple of brands of oil that are sold through racing channels or whatever. Royal Purple, Brad Penn that we're distributing here. There's an alternative to using them, and that's if you're on a trip, you need a car, you're calling for oil, put oil in it. But there's some supplements you can buy from Torco that you can, or other company. GM reintroduced a product called engine oil supplement. Well, another thing that's oftentimes misunderstood is coolant. Up until about 1995, our antifreeze was all the green silicated coolant. And in your owner's manuals, it always said change your coolant every 2 years. It didn't say 2 years in a mileage stipulation. the inhibitor package on the old green silicated coolant was good for 2.0 years. It's 2.2 years if you drove the car daily, and it's 2 years if you never started it. The inhibitor package goes to hell, and all of a sudden this ethylene glycol, the base stock, which is mildly corrosive, starts doing its nasty deed. This is a radiator out of a car that had new coolant in it that was never driven. Can you see all that white mung on the ends of the tubes here? That's what brand new unused coolant does after you leave it in a state of neglect for a while. And so there's your radiator. It looks just fine and healthy, but look what the inside looks like. Change your coolant religiously, is what I'm telling you. If you're doing a full restoration and you're hot tanking the block and replacing the water pump and the radiator and the heater core and your hoses and the water pump, putting it all new, put the Dexcool in, and you'll have a 5-year. Spend your money on coolant, save your money on oil is my advice for you today. Another thing to bear in mind is when most of our new cars at the factory, they all put sealant tablets in it, you know, the bars leak type stuff. It's good stuff. It is. They've tested it extensively. It doesn't cause plugging of the cooling system, but it does stop leaks. And it's not just General Motors, but Ford and all the big three are putting that stuff in there. If you're going to do your cooling system maintenance, replace those tabs. The stuff goes out when you drain the old stuff out, so you got to replenish the seal tabs whenever you change your coolant. Brake fluid. You know, there's basically, well, there's dot 3, 4, and 5 fluids, but basically they're either the glycol or silicon based brake fluids. The government has uses the silicone fluid, and I use it on our restorations here. And I really, I'm a real believer in silicone brake fluid. The reason you don't see it in your cars coming from the factory is because silicone is the worst thing you could put on a surface of a car before you painted it. I imagine pretty much everybody here's got a can of brake fluid in their garage, right? I'm waiting for another opportunity. Well, let me give you some good advice. Go home and throw it out, okay? Once that can's been opened, it's no good. It's going to suck moisture out of the air, and you don't want to put that in your car anymore. You know, I would look around at your cars, and if you can look in the reservoir and it is not translucent, you know, pump the stuff through. You know, put some fresh stuff in it. It'll be great for your master cylinder, for your wheel cylinders. Get the moisture content out of your brake fluid. Talk a little bit about transmission fluid. You know, transmission fluid is something that most of us probably never have to worry about. What kills transmissions or causes is heat. And so how do you get heat in a transmission? It's shifting under extremely heavy loads, operating under high ambient temperatures. How do you shift under heavy loads? That's when you're towing your airstream across the country or going up mountains. If you're using your car in those circumstances, you should change your fluid periodically. If you're going to make your transmission happy, drop the salt, change the filter, put new fluid in, do your job right. But I tell people, just go and take and drill and tap the bottom of the case somewhere for an 1/8 inch pipe plug. Put a hole in it about the size of a pencil, then drain out, put a pipe plug in it, and it all comes out, and you can put fresh fluid in there. It's a real easy job. And I do that both transmissions and differentials on cars. We want pretty much everybody agree that when you put your car away, you want to fill the gas tank up and make sure there's no air getting in there. Yep. Yeah. That's what we've been told for all these years. Well, the current thought is don't bother. Okay? The reason being is that today's fuels don't have any shelf life. It hardly vaporizes when it's fresh, but believe me, once it's 2 months old, it won't vaporize at all. It hardly starts. And so, what I like to do is have the tank empty, so the first thing I can do is, I give it a shot of starting fluid so it'll light off, and I go and put some fresh fuel in so it'll run right. So don't fill your tank up with a bunch of stuff that ain't gonna fire when you start driving your car in the spring. Leave it empty. Let's talk a little bit about these, keeping the car dry. Well, you can buy desiccant bags, pouches and stuff. You can keep it inside your car, and keep it near your car, keep it, to suck the moisture out of the air. here's an important one. Don't apply your parking brakes when you're storing the car. Batteries, you know, keep a trickle charger on the modern cars. They all have parasitic draws. They all want to go dead on you, so good idea to keep them charged up. I'm a dealer for these parts, these jackets, because I really believe in them. But you can see here, it's basically a big plastic sleeping bag that, I guess this is all being projected on the back of the computer, that you can put your car into, and they're really a great product. It's basically a zipper pouch that you put your car into. They sell pouches of desiccant that you put inside the car and outside the car. And the people that in the brass car collecting hobby came up with this idea first, because when they took their cars out of storage every spring, they spent the first 2 days cleaning all the brass, turning it from green to the shiny gold again. When you wrap them up like this, they come out looking exactly the way you put them away. Yes, sir.
They make those for motorcycles too. I've been using an Omni bag, which was originally called it from Bath,
Right.
Michigan, for 20 years on my 50 Studebaker.
Wonderful. John and Betty Shepke own the company. They're wonderful people. I'm a distributor. If you want, I could save you a little bit of money on them if you want me to buy them. When I do a restoration, people, I make them buy them. Well, thanks for your attention. At this point here, you know, you're welcome to take a walk around here and see some of the stuff. The body shop's way in the back. There's cake here, which you're going to be required to eat before you leave.
Well, let's thank Werner and thank him again.
Rocking in my Studebaker, 63. Take me back to the.
So you drive around in a buggy or a car?
Well, I have
That's what roots are in buggies, right?
I wish that
way things used to be. Come on in the backseat, baby, rock with me, Mr. Policeman. Won't you let me be? Yeah. Rocking in my Studebaker, 63.
Masterworks, the Werner Meier facility here is just wonderful. We had a seminar today. Werner spoke to us and actually learned quite a bit about fluids and about gasoline, about brake fluid. So I'm definitely going to take his advice on a few things and drain some fluids from my cars.
Won't you let me be? Yeah. Rocking in my Studebaker, 63.
I, Sandra Studebaker, am present at the meeting today, at the joint meeting today of Masterworks.